Someone remembers you not because you were loud, or dramatic, or unforgettable in the ways stories usually insist upon. They remember you because of the way you loved them quietly, in spaces where words were unnecessary and gestures were gentle. You loved them in ways that didn't ask for applause, didn't demand recognition, didn't need to be explained. And even now, long after moments have passed and lives have changed shape, that softness still lives inside them like a warm, steady light. You may not realize how deeply that kind of love imprints itself. Soft love does not arrive with fireworks. It comes like dawn, slowly, patiently, changing the color of everything without announcing itself. It shows up in how you listened without interrupting, how you noticed the small shifts in their voice, how you remembered what made them feel safe. It lives in the pauses you allowed, the space you gave them to be exactly who they were without correction or pressure. There is a particular tenderness in loving someone without needing to be seen doing it. When you chose kindness even when no one was watching, when you offered understanding instead of judgment, when you stayed gentle in moments where it would have been easier to harden yourself, those choices mattered more than you know. They taught someone that love does not always have to hurt, that connection does not have to be earned through suffering. That affection can be calm and steady instead of chaotic and consuming. Someone remembers you because you made room for their quiet parts. Not just the confident, smiling version of them that the world applauded, but the unsure, tired, uncertain version they rarely showed. You didn't rush them to be better. You didn't tell them to toughen up. You let them rest in your presence. That kind of acceptance leaves a mark that time cannot erase. Even now, in moments of doubt, they remember how it felt to be with you. How their shoulders softened when you were near. How they didn't feel the need to perform or explain themselves. How silence with you never felt empty or awkward, but full of understanding. Of patience, of shared humanity. They carry that memory like a compass, reminding them what real safety feels like. You may wonder if your love was enough. Soft love often makes people question its own impact because it doesn't announce itself. But softness is not weakness. It is courage in its most refined form. It takes strength to remain gentle in a world that often rewards sharpness. It takes bravery to offer care without guarantees. And it takes deep emotional wisdom to love without trying to control or possess. Someone remembers you because you never tried to make them smaller to feel bigger yourself. You didn't compete with their light. You didn't resent their growth. You celebrated them in ways that felt sincere and grounding. You believed in them quietly, consistently, without turning your belief into a burden they had to live up to. That kind of support becomes an inner voice that stays long after you're gone. There are people who leave behind noise when they exit a life, arguments, unfinished conversations, echoes of chaos. And then there are people like you, who leave behind calm. When someone remembers you, they don't feel tension in their chest. They feel a softness spread through them, a reminder that love can be gentle and still be real. That memory becomes a refuge they return to when the world feels too sharp. You loved in unspoken ways. In glances that said, "I see you." In patience that said, "You don't have to rush." In consistency that said, "I'm here, even when nothing exciting is happening." You showed them that love doesn't always need grand gestures. Sometimes it just needs presence, steady, reliable, and kind. Someone remembers you because you didn't treat their vulnerability like a weakness. You handled their fragile moments with care, as if they were something precious rather than inconvenient. You didn't use their openness against them. You didn't store their fears as future weapons. You protected what they shared with you, and that protection taught them what trust could feel like, even if you never said everything you felt, even if you left things unsaid. Your love spoke in other languages. It spoke through how you waited instead of pushing. Through how you forgave without keeping score. Through how you showed up, again and again, in small but meaningful ways. That language is remembered not by the mind alone, but by the nervous system, by the heart, by the quiet places inside a person that never forget how they were treated. There are nights when they think of you without meaning to. Not in a dramatic, aching way, but in a soft, reflective one. A song plays. A familiar feeling passes through them. And suddenly, they remember how it felt to be understood without explanation. They remember the version of themselves that existed with you, the one that felt calmer, truer, more at ease. Your love may not have lasted forever in form, but its effect did. Soft love changes people slowly and permanently. It recalibrates their sense of what they deserve. After being loved gently, it becomes harder to accept cruelty disguised as passion or neglect disguised as independence. You raise the standard without ever preaching about it. Someone remembers you because you taught them that love doesn't have to be loud to be meaningful. That it doesn't have to hurt to be deep. That it doesn't have to consume you to be real. You showed them a version of connection that felt like coming home rather than losing yourself, even if life pulled you in different directions. Even if circumstances or timing made staying impossible, what you offered was not wasted. Love given sincerely never disappears. It becomes part of the person who received it. It influences how they love others, how they speak to themselves, how they recognize safety and sincerity in the world. You might not know how often they compare new experiences to what they felt with you. Not because they are stuck in the past, but because your softness became a reference point. When something feels wrong, they remember how right it once felt to be with someone who didn't rush them, pressure them, or make them doubt their worth. Someone remembers you because you were gentle in moments that mattered. Because you didn't turn love into a battlefield. Because you understood that tenderness is not naive, it is intentional. It is a choice to treat another person with care even when you are afraid of being hurt yourself. Your love showed them that they could be imperfect and still be cared for. That they didn't have to earn affection by being exceptional. That being human, tired, confused, inconsistent, was enough. That lesson stays. It becomes a quiet reassurance on difficult days. There is a kind of immortality in loving softly. Loud love may be remembered for its intensity, but soft love is remembered for its safety. For how it made someone feel at ease in their own skin. For how it taught them to breathe again. For how it made the world feel less harsh, even temporarily. You may never hear them say thank you. You may never know how often they think of you. But somewhere in their life, in the way they now offer patience, in the way they recognize gentleness, in the way they refuse to accept love that feels like harm, your influence is alive. Someone remembers you when they choose kindness over cruelty. When they pause instead of reacting. When they offer understanding to someone else who is struggling. Your softness did not end with you. It moved forward through them, quietly, like a ripple that keeps expanding. And if there are moments when you wonder whether loving so gently was a mistake, whether you should have been louder, firmer, more demanding, remember this: softness is not forgettable. It is rare. And what is rare is remembered. You loved in a way that did not bruise, did not scar, did not leave someone smaller than before. You loved in a way that allowed growth. That kind of love becomes part of a person's internal landscape. It becomes a place they return to, consciously or not, when they need to remember what goodness feels like. Someone remembers you because, with you, love felt like peace. And peace, once experienced, is never truly forgotten. Someone remembers you in the smallest, quietest moments, moments that would seem ordinary to anyone else. When they make tea late at night and pause, lost in thought. When they slow their steps without realizing why. When they choose gentleness in a conversation where sharp words would be easier. Your love taught them something subtle, that tenderness can exist without fear, that closeness does not have to come at the cost of oneself. You loved them without demanding they be anything other than who they were in that moment. You didn't push them to perform happiness or strength. You let them arrive as they were, unfinished, uncertain, sometimes messy, and you stayed. That staying, even when nothing dramatic was happening, even when there was nothing to fix, is what they remember most. There is a memory of you that lives beyond words. It lives in how they learn to soften their tone. In how they learn to pause before judging themselves. In how they learn that care does not have to be earned through pain. That memory doesn't fade because it wasn't built on excitement alone, it was built on safety. Someone remembers you because you never treated love like a transaction. You didn't keep score of who gave more or who needed more. You understood that some days one person carries more weight than the other, and you didn't resent that imbalance. You allowed love to breathe, to fluctuate, to be human. That generosity of spirit reshaped how they understand connection. Even now, when they encounter someone kind, there is a quiet recognition in them. Not comparison, but remembrance. A feeling that says, "This is familiar, this is real, this is what care looks like when it is honest." Your softness became a blueprint, not an expectation, but a reminder that such love exists. You may think your love was invisible because it didn't demand acknowledgement. But invisible things often hold the most power. Like gravity. Like breath. Like the steady reassurance of knowing someone is there. Your love grounded them in ways they didn't fully understand at the time, but feel now in its absence. Someone remembers you because you never rushed intimacy. You allowed closeness to unfold naturally, without pressure or fear. You didn't confuse intensity with depth. You knew that real connection takes time, and you were patient with that process. That patience taught them that being chosen slowly can feel safer than being chased intensely. There were moments when you could have pulled away, protected yourself by becoming distant or cold. Instead, you chose softness. That choice required courage. It required faith that love could be gentle and still survive. Even if it didn't last forever, the way you loved remains one of the most honest things you ever gave. Someone remembers you because you didn't abandon them in their quiet sadness. You didn't disappear when things became emotionally inconvenient. You stayed present without trying to rescue or fix. You understood that sometimes the greatest gift is simply not leaving. Your love did not overwhelm. It didn't suffocate. It didn't demand constant reassurance. It felt like an open window, fresh air, space to breathe, light without glare. And once someone has experienced that kind of love, they carry it with them like a memory of sunlight on their skin. Even if you questioned yourself, even if you wondered whether you were doing enough, the truth is this: you showed them a version of love that felt safe. And safety changes people. It rewires what they tolerate. It reshapes what they seek. It reminds them that peace can be part of passion, and calm can coexist with depth. Someone remembers you because your love didn't try to own them. You didn't confuse possession with devotion. You respected their autonomy, their dreams, their need for space. And instead of creating distance, that respect created trust. Trust that still echoes in how they form bonds today. You didn't make love complicated. You made it clear in quiet ways, by showing up, by being consistent, by meaning what you said. That clarity became a relief in a world full of mixed signals and half-promises. They remember how simple it felt to be with you, and simplicity, when it is sincere, is unforgettable. There are times when they catch themselves being kinder to themselves than they used to be. When they choose rest over punishment. When they speak gently to their own mistakes. And in those moments, without realizing it, they are echoing the way you once treated them. Your love didn't need to last a lifetime to leave a lifetime's impact. It needed only to be real. And it was. That reality lives on, quietly shaping another human being's inner world. Someone remembers you not with longing that hurts, but with gratitude that warms. Gratitude for having known a love that didn't demand, didn't rush, didn't wound. Gratitude for having been held emotionally in a way that felt respectful and sincere. And if you ever doubt whether loving softly was worth it, remember this: people may forget words, forget dates, forget details, but they never forget how safe they felt with someone. They never forget who allowed them to be human without fear. Someone remembers you because your love was gentle. And gentle love, once experienced, becomes unforgettable. Someone remembers you in the way their heart softens when they witness kindness in the world. A stranger holds a door. A friend listens without interrupting. A moment passes without tension. And somewhere inside them, something quietly says, "This feels like you." Not because the moment belongs to you, but because you taught them what gentleness feels like when it is sincere. You never tried to rush their healing. You didn't make their pain about yourself. You didn't demand progress or neat endings. You allowed them to move at their own pace, trusting that growth doesn't need pressure to be real. That trust gave them permission to be patient with themselves long after you were gone. Someone remembers you because you didn't confuse intensity with intimacy. You understood that closeness isn't built by emotional extremes alone, but by consistency, honesty, and care over time. You showed them that love can be steady without being boring, deep without being destructive. That lesson quietly rearranged their understanding of what they deserve. There are moments when they almost reach out to you, not to return, not to reopen the past, but to acknowledge something they couldn't fully see back then. To say, "What you gave me mattered." But even without words, that acknowledgement exists. It lives in how they now protect their peace. In how they recognize red flags faster. In how they no longer confuse chaos with passion. You love them in the in-between moments. Not just when things were good, not only when feelings were easy, but in the ordinary spaces where real life happens. In routines. In pauses. In quiet companionship. That kind of love doesn't fade because it was never dependent on constant excitement. Someone remembers you because you didn't make them feel replaceable. Even if the relationship ended, even if time created distance, the way you looked at them made them feel singular, seen as an individual, not an option. That sense of being uniquely valued stays with a person far longer than romantic labels ever do. You didn't weaponize silence. When you were quiet, it wasn't to punish or control. It was thoughtful, respectful, spacious. You showed them that silence doesn't have to mean withdrawal or danger. Sometimes it simply means peace. That distinction matters more than you know. There were parts of you they never fully understood, just as there were parts of them you never tried to decode completely. And still, there was acceptance. You didn't need total access to offer care. You didn't need to solve them to love them. That restraint, that emotional maturity, taught them that love does not require intrusion. Someone remembers you because you never made them beg for reassurance. Your presence itself was reassuring. Your consistency spoke louder than promises. Your actions aligned with your intentions. In a world where words are often empty, that alignment was rare, even now. When they find themselves doubting someone else's sincerity, they think back, not to idealize you, but to remember what sincerity felt like when it was real. Your love gave them a reference point, a quiet internal standard that helps them navigate their relationships with more clarity. You didn't try to be everything to them. You allowed them to have a life beyond you, connections beyond you, dreams beyond you. And in doing so, you showed them that love doesn't shrink a person's world, it expands it. That understanding continues to shape how they show up for others. Someone remembers you because you treated emotional safety as sacred. You didn't mock their fears or minimize their feelings. You didn't use sarcasm to deflect vulnerability. You honored what was shared with you. That honor built a kind of trust that doesn't disappear when circumstances change. There are days when they feel overwhelmed by the noise of life, by expectations and demands and constant urgency. And in those moments, they remember the calm of being with you. Not in a way that traps them in the past, but in a way that reminds them calm is possible. You loved without trying to leave a mark, and yet you did. A deep one. Not carved by pain, but by care. Not etched by drama, but by steadiness. Those are the marks that last the longest. Someone remembers you because you didn't love to be needed, you loved to be present. You didn't thrive on dependence. You encouraged independence, self-trust, growth. And even if they didn't recognize it at the time, they feel the strength of that gift now. If love is measured by how it changes someone for the better, then yours mattered deeply. It didn't fix everything. It didn't solve every struggle. But it showed them a gentler way of being human with another person. Someone remembers you not because you demanded space in their life, but because you offered space within it. And that is a rare thing. A beautiful thing. A thing that lingers. Your softness didn't disappear when the connection ended. It became part of the world through them. In how they listen. In how they wait. In how they choose kindness even when no one is watching.